If not, we'll invite Beth Hamill to give a finance committee report. Beth?
Good morning. I'm going to invite our independent auditors to come and join me. September, so it's time to talk about our fiscal year 10 financial statement as we do each September. Before I turn it over to Nancy and Jim, I just wanted to say a few words about our financials and the importance. The importance of our financial statements and the role of the independent auditor. So speaking both to you as the board and to our public. TriMet as a public agency has a very high accountability and transparency standard, as any public entity does. We have the power to tax. We are supported by taxes and fees, in our case, fares. And our financials are complex, and we have compliance requirements, restricted funds, things that private entities often don't have. And so we're correctly held to a higher standard of accountability than the private sector is. And I want to state to the public and to you that this is a responsibility that's taken very seriously by me, by my staff, and by Neil. And our financial statements are a very large component of this accountability and transparency. To you, to our taxpayers, to our riders, to our partners, including the federal government, and also to the more traditional recipients of public financial statements like the rating agencies and our bondholders. And our statements are available. Many years' history is available on the website, and as will these be. So the independent auditor plays a very important role in this accountability because they provide an independent third-party view of our financials and help you in carrying out your responsibilities, and also provide you with the confidence that you can rely on what we as staff have pulled together. So I also want to brag a bit about our financials. We believe we are the earliest public entity in the state to publish with our fiscal year end in June. I think we're the first public entity of any size to get our financial statements out and publicly available. And as I said, the document will be on the website by the end of the month, probably, but next week, probably a little, hopefully earlier. And so with that, if there are no questions of a general nature, I'm going to turn it over to Nancy Young and Jim Lanzarotta of Moss Adams, who have been our independent auditors for years. Most of you have met them before. And they're going to provide you with an overview of the procedures and audit practices, the nature of the services that they provide. And those of you on the Finance Committee know, prior to today, they have met individually with the Finance Committee members and will be available after this meeting in the future, as will Lori Tasker and I, to meet with anyone who has questions. And I also, before I just have to say thank you to Lori Tasker, who you all know, our Director of Financial Services, who is the reason that we are able to get our financials published first of any public entity.
Okay, well, thank you for the opportunity to come. I'm Jim Lanzarotta, partner with Moss Adams and responsible for our relationship with TriMet. And Nancy Young is a senior manager with Moss Adams and really the key person to supervise the audit, work with our staff and your staff to see that this gets done. You know, usually or sometimes when we come before boards to talk about audits, it's sometimes eyes glaze over. It's not the most interesting subject. I was going to try to keep you riveted to your seats by telling you we have really good news, and then Rick already kind of let the cat out of the bag. We have good news, but anyway, I guess good news comes, who cares whether it's riveting or not. So what we're going to do, as Beth mentioned, we'll very briefly talk to you about the nature of the service we provided. And of course, you want to know the results. And so Nancy is going to take it from there and really share with you the results of the audit, and then the areas that we looked at. And then I'll just bring it home with just a comment on the pension area. And of course, answer questions as we go. So clearly, when we do audits, I like to break them into about 5 components. I think you understand that we have an obligation to come in and look at evidence supporting the numbers that appear in your financial statements. So we have to look at supporting documents. We talk to third parties like your attorneys, banks, creditors, to make sure those statements are consistent with what other people say your numbers should be. and consistent with the responses that we get from our discussions. I think you have a good understanding of that. A second element of that, though, is that we have a requirement to look at your internal controls. Those things, the safeguards, the checks and balances in your system that enable you to produce accurate financial information and put together an accurate financial statement. If there are weaknesses in those controls, we have an obligation to bring that to your attention. And we'll talk about that or address that today. So that's a second element. You are an Oregon municipal corporation, and any Oregon municipal has an obligation to abide by state laws, and there are certain state laws that we're required to test your compliance and provide a report on that. And that's included in our remarks today and in the bound copy that you'll get of your financial statements. So that's a third area. As you know, you get a lot of federal dollars, federal grants that help you acquire the infrastructure and the capital assets that you use and to help maintain that. So anytime you receive federal grants, your auditor, independent auditor, also has to test your compliance with those grant programs. And again, do you have internal controls in place that help you meet those compliance requirements? And so we're here to tell you the results of those procedures that we did. And then finally, you produce this financial statement, and as Beth mentioned, you're very fortunate that you have staff on board that have the technical know-how to put these statements together. And not only put them together, but meet the standards. Although we have comments or suggestions for improvements along the way in our review, and that's the final element of the service we provide, which is a review of those statements and feedback to management. They do such a great job that our feedback hasn't been great for you just because of the quality that it comes to us for review. So that's the nature of what we do. So Nancy gets to take it away.